So, I was just out buying cough gels, and the clerk asked me my date of birth. So, I told him, and he's like, wow, the 80s, 1981, how could I have guessed that you were from the 80s? And I was like, oh, yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff that came from the 80s. Like, a lot of important culture that should not be forgotten has come from the past. It is very important to the time period right now. And he's like, oh, really? I'm like, cracked open a nut. He didn't want to crack open, whatever. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I don't know. I was like, yeah. Like, for example, in the 90s, there's music videos where they danced like 9/11 never happened. In fact, there are music videos where they not only danced like 9/11 never happened, like Paula Abdul's Promise of a New Day had this like Nelly Furtado's I'm Like a Bird had this like new age vibe to it, especially Paula Abdul's Promise of a New Day. It was a new age vibe. It was like one little chunk of lyric is like, see the wisdom from mistakes of the past, hear the younger generation ask, why do I feel this way? Promise of a new day. Okay, that's not like any of the song lyrics now. Nothing like that on either side of the time period. What that was like everybody in that moment, if you would have sat there and interviewed people and been like, what do you think is going to happen in the next 10 years? How likely do you think world peace is going to be? Like, people, like, expected it. You know, he's like, yeah, I kind of get that. You know, with the new millennium coming around, I can kind of see how people would think that. I'm like, no. People didn't think it. People fucking felt it. We knew it was coming down the pipes. World peace, the enlightened, hippy-dippy, super future, peace be upon us all of humanity was coming down the pipes, and we all knew it. And most people aren't going to sit there and say it like I will, because you sound like an idiot. You're in 2022. You know, how can you know something was going to happen that obviously didn't happen? Nobody wants to sound like an idiot, like they knew something that turned out to be untrue. But we did. We knew it. We felt it. It was coming down the pipes. I'm okay with being like, oh yeah, I knew something that turned out to be untrue. What happened was that was a creation that we had. It was all dialed out. It was coming down the pipes, coming at us, and 9/11 shot that out of the sky. And without getting into that like whole ball of worms entirely, I would just say that it was intentional to keep that from coming down the pipes. People want power and control, and to stay on top have got to push the rest of humanity down and create fear, terror, division, confusion, etc. Because if everybody's all enlightened, peace be upon you, we're unified, that does not do anything for the people at the top of the hierarchy, who want to preserve their position of power. Not only that, but if they lose control, you know, I mean, it's like a survival mechanism for them. Like being in a drug cartel almost. Like, it gets to a certain point where they're like, the shit they've done, you know, if the good guys take over, that would come to light, and that would not an option for them. So yeah, Paula Abdul's Promise of the New Day, 9/11 shot world peace out of the sky, planetary unification, the peace be upon you, enlightened super future, and you have to go back to the 90s to see where things diverged to realize that we're in the Biff Tannen, Marty McFly, Back to the Future dystopian version of 2022. You can't get that without going back to the past. So, to the younger generation out there, I would say study the culture of the 80s and the 90s and how things were. It's closer to how things should be, but not entirely. Now, I don't think world peace and planetary unification and the peace be upon you, enlightened super future of humanity got shot out of the sky forever. But I do think it got delayed, I don't know, maybe 20, 25 years. But it's the destiny of humanity. It will happen. There's no way that it can't happen at this point. I mean, as the age of information turns into the age of transparency, as long as they can't completely lock down the internet and information to where we're talking about how things are double plus ungood or whatever, like, the truth always asserts itself. It always comes out, and the age of transparency will facilitate the spread of information faster, easier, and the amount of energy that it takes for information and the truth to spread and assert itself becomes less and less, and it becomes increasingly easier for it to spread. The amount of energy that it takes to suppress the truth becomes harder and harder and disproportionately more difficult to how easy it is for it to spread. So, the truth will win the day, and the secrecy that is required for nefarious deeds to take place in the cover of secrecy, that kind of darkness will be dispelled. Eventually we're going to have, if it comes down to it, we'll have microscopic cameras floating around on the air and nobody will be able to have secrets at all. And that'd be the end of privacy, but it'll also be the end of secrecy, shadiness, hidden agendas, and all of this Biff Tannen alternate dystopia stuff we're doing right now. We're not, things aren't going to be like this forever. I think planet Earth, humanity is exactly as oppressed as we allow ourselves to be, which is pretty fucking, but is becoming less and less so. So, hey, cross your fingers for the enlightened, peace be upon us all, unified world peace, happy, hippy, dippy, enlightened super future that works for everybody. Hold that vision, move toward it, because there's never been a better time for it. The setup is all there. It's better than the 90s. I mean, they were able to knock it back 20 or 25 years, but it is happening, and nothing can stop what is coming. So keep on pushing and fighting the good fight. Peace be upon y'all. May the enlightened super future of free humanity win this timeline.